The late afternoon sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Bradford Mansion in Tarrytown, one of Austin's most exclusive neighborhoods overlooking Lake Austin. Emily Bradford sat at the Steinway grand piano in the music room, her fingers tracing the familiar keys she had memorized years ago. At 19, she had been blind for 5 years, but the layout of this room remained as clear in her mind as if she could still see it. Outside, the Texas heat shimmered off the limestone pool deck, and the sound of cicadas filled the air with their rhythmic chorus. Emily could hear the gardeners working near the rose garden, the distant hum of traffic on the 360 bridge, and somewhere in the house, her mother's assistant was on the phone, her voice a muted echo through the hallways. "Emily, your session with Dr. Hutchinson is in an hour," came the voice of Patricia, the house manager who had been with the family since before the accident. Her tone was gentle but firm, the way one might speak to a child rather than a young adult. "Your mother wants you to wear the blue dress. It's already laid out on your bed." Emily's jaw tightened. She was 19 years old, and her mother still chose her clothes for therapy appointments. "Thank you, Patricia. I can manage." "Of course, dear. I'll have Robert bring the car around at 4:30. Robert was the family driver, another link in the chain of supervision that had defined Emily's life since the accident. She remembered the night so clearly, too clearly. She had been 14, sitting in the passenger seat of her father's Mercedes, coming home from a violin recital in San Antonio. Emily had just performed Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and her father, James Bradford, was telling her how proud he was when the semi-truck ran the red light at the intersection of I-35 and Highway 46. The impact had been instant and catastrophic. Her father died at the scene. Emily survived but suffered a severe traumatic brain injury that damaged her optic nerves beyond repair. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive, but Victoria Bradford had never recovered from the guilt of not being in that car, of sending her husband and daughter alone on that trip because she had an important board meeting. Emily rose from the piano bench and made her way to the adjoining music library, her hand trailing along the wall until she found the bookshelf where she kept her guitar. It was a Martin D28, a gift from her father 3 months before he died. Her fingers found the familiar shape, and she lifted it carefully, returning to the leather chair by the window. She began to strum softly, playing the opening chords to Amarillo by Morning, one of George Strait's classics. His music had become her refuge in the dark months after losing her sight. There was something about the honesty in his voice, the straightforward storytelling in his lyrics, that made her feel less alone. While Victoria had hired the best therapists, the most qualified orientation and mobility specialists, and transformed their home into a perfectly accessible environment, it was George Strait's songs that actually helped Emily find her way through the grief and fear. "That sounds beautiful, sweetheart." Emily's hands stilled on the strings. She hadn't heard her mother enter. Victoria Bradford moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to commanding rooms full of executives and artists. At 47, she was striking, tall, with auburn hair she kept in an elegant bob, and a wardrobe of designer suits that reflected her position as CEO of Bradford Entertainment Group. "Mom? I didn't know you were home," Emily said, carefully keeping her voice neutral. "I have a conference call at 5, but I wanted to check on you before your therapy session." Victoria's heels clicked across the hardwood floor as she approached. Emily could smell her mother's signature perfume, Chanel No. 5, always the same. "Dr. Hutchinson called me yesterday. He thinks you're ready to start going to therapy sessions alone, without Robert waiting in the lobby." Emily's heart quickened. "Really?" "I told him I'd think about it." Victoria's tone was measured, controlled. "Emily, you know I only want what's best for you. The world can be dangerous, especially for someone in your situation." "My situation?" Emily set the guitar aside, her frustration building. "Mom, I'm blind, not helpless. I've been working with orientation and mobility specialists for 5 years. I know how to use my cane. I know how to navigate. In controlled environments," Victoria corrected. "This house, the therapy office, familiar routes with Robert. But Austin is growing so fast. There's construction everywhere. The traffic is getting worse, and you can't see the dangers. I can hear them. I can sense them. I have tools and training." Emily stood, her hands clenched at her sides. "When are you going to let me actually live my life?" The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken pain. Emily knew what her mother was thinking, that she'd already lost her husband to one accident, and she couldn't bear the thought of losing her daughter to another. But understanding her mother's fear didn't make the suffocation any easier to bear. "We'll discuss this later," Victoria said finally, her voice tight. "Right now, you need to get ready for Dr. Hutchinson. And Emily," she paused, "there's something I wanted to tell you. The Texas Hill Country Foundation is hosting a benefit dinner here next month. George Strait will be performing." Emily's breath caught. "George Strait? Here? In our house?" "Yes. I've been working with his management team for months. It's a private event for major donors, only about 50 people. The foundation raises money for children's medical charities." Victoria's tone softened slightly. "I know how much his music means to you. I thought you'd like to attend." Yes, of course I would." Emily's mind was racing. George Strait, the voice that had carried her through her darkest moments, would be performing in her home. "Thank you, Mom." "You're welcome, sweetheart. Now, go get ready. Patricia laid out your dress." After Victoria left, Emily stood alone in the music room, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and the familiar ache of frustration. George Strait would be in her home, but she would attend under the same circumstances as everything else in her life. Carefully supervised, every moment controlled, every risk eliminated. She made her way to her bedroom, navigating the hallway with practiced ease. As promised, Patricia had laid out the blue dress, and Emily ran her fingers over the fabric, feeling the soft cotton blend. She had long since stopped caring what colors she wore, trusting the choices of others, but sometimes she missed the simple act of choosing for herself. An hour later, Emily sat in the back of the family's Mercedes as Robert navigated through Austin traffic toward Dr. Hutchinson's office in the Westlake area. She could hear the radio playing softly. A country station, though not one of George Strait's songs this time. Through the open window, she caught fragments of the city. Car horns, the sizzle of street vendor food carts, snippets of conversation from pedestrians waiting at crosswalks. Dr. Daniel Hutchinson's office was on the third floor of a modern building with a bright, airy waiting room that Emily had only experienced through description. She knew there were large windows overlooking the hill country, contemporary art on the walls, and a coffee station that always smelled like hazelnut. "Emily, come on in." Dr. Hutchinson's warm voice greeted her as she entered the waiting room. He was in his early 50s, with a calm demeanor that had helped Emily trust him over the past 3 years. "How was your week?" "It was fine," Emily said automatically as she followed him into his office, her cane sweeping the familiar path to the leather chair she always sat in. "Just fine?" Dr. Hutchinson settled into his own chair, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Your mother tells me you've been playing guitar more." "That's good." "She also told you she won't let me come here alone." "We talked about that, yes. But I'm more interested in how you feel about it." Emily leaned back, her hands gripping the armrests. "How do you think I feel?" "I'm 19 years old, Dr. Hutchinson. Most people my age are in college, living in dorms, figuring out who they are. I'm still being driven everywhere like a child. My mother chooses my clothes, monitors my schedule, and treats me like I'm made of glass." And you resent that. Of course I resent it. The words burst out before she could stop them. I know she loves me. I know she's terrified of losing me like she lost Dad. But I'm not living. I'm just existing in this beautiful cage she's built for me. Have you told her this? In bits and pieces. But every time I try to push for more independence, she finds a reason why it's not safe, why I'm not ready, why we should wait just a little longer. Emily's voice dropped. It's been 5 years, Dr. Hutchinson. When will I be ready? That's an excellent question. When do you think you'll be ready? I'm ready now. I've been ready. I can navigate my neighborhood with my cane. I can use rideshare apps designed for people with visual impairments. I can attend community college classes if she'd just let me enroll. Emily paused, feeling the familiar sting of tears she'd learned to recognize even without seeing them fall. I want to live my life, not just wait for her permission to start living it. Dr. Hutchinson was quiet for a moment. Emily, I'm going to share something with you that I shared with your mother. Independence isn't just about physical capability. It's about emotional readiness on both sides. You're clearly ready. Your skills are solid, your awareness is excellent, and you've done the work to adapt to your visual impairment. But your mother is still working through her trauma from the accident. So I have to stay trapped because she can't let go? No, but you may need to start taking small steps toward independence, whether she's ready or not. Sometimes the only way to show someone you're capable is to be capable, even when they're afraid. Emily considered this. What kind of small steps? Well, for starters, you could insist on coming to these sessions alone. Frame it not as a rebellion, but as a necessary part of your therapeutic growth. I'll support you on that. Dr. Hutchinson shifted in his chair. But I'm also curious about something else. Your mother mentioned George Strait is performing at your home next month. That seems significant, given how much his music has meant to you. It is significant, Emily admitted. His songs have helped me more than any therapy, if I'm honest. No offense. None taken. Music can be incredibly healing. Are you planning to meet him? I don't know. Mom will probably keep me at a distance. She always does at these events. Or, Dr. Hutchinson said carefully, you could make a plan to introduce yourself, to thank him for how his music has helped you. That would be taking initiative, wouldn't it? The thought both thrilled and terrified Emily. I wouldn't even know what to say. You'd say what's true, that his songs helped you find your way when you couldn't see the path forward. Dr. Hutchinson paused. Emily, I think one of the things you're most afraid of is being seen as your disability rather than as yourself. But the people worth knowing will always see you first. After the session ended, Emily sat in the waiting room while Robert was called to bring the car around. She could hear other patients coming and going, the receptionist answering phones, the soft background music designed to create a calming atmosphere. But her mind was elsewhere, turning over Dr. Hutchinson's words. Take small steps toward independence. Show her you're capable by being capable. Introduce yourself to George Strait. The ideas felt both empowering and frightening. Emily had spent 5 years learning to navigate without sight, but she'd spent those same 5 years learning to live within the boundaries her mother had set. Crossing those boundaries felt like stepping off a cliff without knowing how far the fall would be. The drive home was quiet, Robert making only small comments about traffic and weather that Emily answered with minimal responses. When they arrived back at the mansion, she could hear preparations already underway for the evening. Victoria was hosting a dinner for several record label executives, another event Emily would be expected to make a brief appearance at before retreating to her room. Emily, there you are. Patricia met her at the door. Your mother would like you to join her for dinner tonight. The guests are arriving at 7. I've laid out your black dress with the pearl necklace. I'm actually pretty tired, Emily said. I think I'll just have dinner in my room. Your mother specifically requested your presence. Patricia's tone held a note of apology. She says it's important. Of course she did. Victoria always found ways to keep Emily close, to keep her contained within the world she could control. Emily nodded, too exhausted to argue, and made her way to her room to prepare for another evening of being the perfect, managed daughter. But as she changed into the black dress and fastened the pearl necklace around her neck, Emily made a decision. When George Strait came to perform, she would find a way to speak with him. Not because her mother arranged it, but because she chose to. It would be a small act of independence, but it would be hers. And maybe, just maybe, it would be the first step toward the life she was ready to live. The weeks leading up to the benefit concert transformed the Bradford mansion into a carefully orchestrated production. Victoria spent hours on conference calls with event planners, the foundation board, and George Strait's management team. Emily heard it all from the periphery of her controlled existence. The discussions about stage setup in the grand ballroom, catering menus, security protocols, and guest lists that read like a who's who of Austin's wealthy elite. The stage will be positioned against the north wall, Victoria explained to her assistant one morning while Emily practiced piano in the adjacent room. George wants to keep it intimate, no elaborate production. Just him, his guitar, and his band. The foundation loved that. It fits the mission of keeping things genuine and focused on the cause. Emily's fingers moved across the keys, playing a rendition of The Chair, another George Strait classic she'd taught herself. She'd been thinking about Dr. Hutchinson's suggestion constantly, rehearsing in her mind what she might say if she got the chance to speak with the singer. But every scenario she imagined ended with her mother intervening, redirecting the conversation, maintaining the careful control that defined Emily's life. "That sounds beautiful, honey." Emily turned toward the voice, her hands stilling. It wasn't Victoria, it was Claire Peterson, her best friend since middle school, and one of the few people Victoria allowed into Emily's carefully managed world. Claire had been in the car 2 behind them the night of the accident, following with her parents from the same recital. She'd been the first friend to visit Emily in the hospital. And unlike so many others, she'd never treated Emily's blindness as something to pity or tiptoe around. "Claire, I didn't know you were coming today. Your mom called my mom, said you might need a dress fitting for the big concert night. Apparently, I'm your fashion consultant now." Claire's footsteps approached, and Emily caught the scent of her friend's coconut shampoo as she sat beside her on the piano bench. "So, George Strait, huh? You must be losing your mind." "I am, kind of," Emily admitted. "His songs have meant so much to me, Claire. But you know how these events go. I'll probably shake his hand, say something awkward, and then Mom will whisk me away to talk to some oil executive about quarterly earnings. Or," Claire said slowly, "you could actually do something about that. Emily, you've been talking about wanting more independence. This could be your chance to actually take it." "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if you found a way to really talk to him? Not just the polite 2-minute conversation your mom orchestrates, but an actual conversation. You play his songs, you write your own music, which is incredible, by the way, and you have things to say. Why not say them?" Emily's heart raced at the thought. Mom would never allow it. "So don't ask permission. Emily, you're 19. You live in your own house, or at least you should. Find a moment during the event. Introduce yourself properly. Maybe even play something for him." Claire's voice was gentle but firm. "What's the worst that could happen? She could have security escort me back to my room like I'm a child. Would she really do that in front of all those people? In front of George Strait himself? Claire squeezed Emily's hand. I know you're scared, but I also know you're tired of being scared. This could be the first real choice you make for yourself. Before Emily could respond, Victoria's voice carried from the hallway. Claire, wonderful to see you. Emily, the seamstress is here for your fitting. We're thinking a deep emerald green dress. It'll photograph beautifully. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Emily attended fittings, listened to Victoria discuss seating arrangements, and tried to contain the growing mixture of excitement and anxiety that churned in her chest. Dr. Hutchinson continued to encourage her during their sessions, which Victoria had finally agreed to let her attend alone. A small victory that felt monumental. You seem more energized lately, Dr. Hutchinson observed during one session. What's changed? I think I'm going to do it, Emily said. I'm going to find a way to really talk to George Strait at the concert. To thank him, maybe even play one of my songs for him if the opportunity presents itself. That's excellent, Emily. Have you told your mother about this plan? No, she'll try to stop me or control exactly how it happens. I need to do this on my own terms. Emily paused. Is that wrong? Am I being ungrateful? She's giving me this amazing opportunity. Emily, gratitude and autonomy aren't mutually exclusive. You can appreciate your mother's efforts while also asserting your own needs and desires. Dr. Hutchinson's voice was warm with approval. This is exactly the kind of step we've been working toward. Taking ownership of your experiences. Making choices that reflect who you are, not just who others want you to be. I'm terrified, Emily admitted. That's okay. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward, despite it. The night before the concert, Emily lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house settling around her. Workers had been in all day making final adjustments to the ballroom, testing sound equipment, arranging flowers. Tomorrow night, George Strait would stand in her home, and she would find a way to speak with him. Really speak with him, not just exchange pleasantries. She reached for her phone, activating the voice assistant. Play I Cross My Heart by George Strait. The song filled her room, and Emily closed her eyes. A habit that persisted, even though it made no difference to what she saw. The lyrics spoke of promises and devotion, of love that endured despite obstacles. She thought about the promises she'd made to herself over the years since the accident, that she would learn to adapt, that she wouldn't let her blindness define her entire existence, that someday she would live a life of her own choosing. Tomorrow would be the first real test of those promises. The morning of the concert dawned hot and clear, typical for Austin in early June. Emily woke to the sound of caterers arriving, their voices carrying up from the kitchen as they began preparations for the evening. Victoria was already awake and working, her footsteps purposeful as she moved through the house, giving directions and checking details. Emily, I need you up and ready by 3, Victoria called up the stairs. Hair and makeup are coming at 4, and I want to review the guest list with you so you know who's attending. I don't need hair and makeup, Mom, Emily called back. I can't see myself anyway. But everyone else can see you, sweetheart. This is an important event. I need you to look your best. Emily bit back her frustration. Even now, even on what should be an exciting day, everything was about appearances, about control, about maintaining Victoria's vision of how things should be. The afternoon passed in a parade of preparations. The hairstylist pulled Emily's long, dark hair into an elegant updo. The makeup artist applied foundation and eyeshadow with professional precision, and Patricia helped her into the emerald green dress that Victoria had selected. Emily submitted to it all with practiced patience, saving her energy for the evening ahead. You look absolutely stunning, Claire said when she arrived at 6, her voice full of genuine admiration. "That dress is perfect on you, Em." "Thanks. How does everything look? The ballroom?" "It's incredible. They've set up a small stage with beautiful lighting, soft and warm, not harsh. There are round tables arranged in a semicircle around the stage, each with centerpieces of white roses and candles. It looks elegant, but not overdone. Exactly what you'd expect for something intimate with George Strait." Claire lowered her voice. "Are you still planning to talk to him?" "I'm going to try," Emily whispered back. "I brought my guitar. It's in the music room. If I get a chance, I want to play him one of my songs." "Which one?" "Finding Light. The one I wrote about learning to navigate after losing my sight." Claire squeezed her hand. "He's going to love it. I know he will." Guests began arriving at 7, their voices filling the grand foyer as they were greeted by Victoria and her events staff. Emily stood nearby, shaking hands and making polite conversation with people she couldn't see, but whose names and positions she'd memorized from her mother's briefings. Oil executives, tech entrepreneurs, real estate developers, philanthropists, all writing large checks to the Texas Hill Country Foundation in exchange for an intimate evening with a country music legend. "Emily Bradford, you've grown into such a beautiful young woman," said a man whose voice Emily vaguely recognized. "Your mother tells me you're quite the musician yourself." "I play a little," Emily said carefully, uncomfortable with the attention. "She's being modest," Victoria interjected smoothly. "Emily plays piano and guitar beautifully. Music has been very therapeutic for her since the accident." Emily hated when her mother spoke about her in the third person, as if she weren't standing right there, capable of speaking for herself. But she smiled politely and endured it, counting down the minutes until George Strait would arrive. At 7:30, there was a shift in the energy of the room. Emily felt it before she heard the murmurs spreading through the crowd. He was here. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victoria's voice rang out with practiced charm. "Please join me in welcoming our guest of honor, George Strait." The applause was warm and genuine, and Emily's heart hammered in her chest as she heard him speak for the first time in person. Not through recordings or videos, but live, just meters away from where she stood. "Thank you all for being here tonight," George said, his Texas drawl unmistakable and authentic. "I'm honored to support the foundation and the important work they do for children and families across our state. Let's make this a special evening." Emily wished desperately that she could see him, could match a face to the voice that had carried her through so many dark moments. But she could hear the sincerity in his tone, the genuine warmth that came through even in these brief remarks. Dinner was served in the ballroom, and Emily found herself seated at a table with Claire, her mother, and several major donors. Victoria dominated the conversation, discussing foundation initiatives and upcoming projects, while Emily picked at her food, too nervous to eat. George Strait was seated at the head table, surrounded by board members and his management team. "You're barely eating," Claire whispered. "Are you okay?" "Just nervous," Emily whispered back. "What if I don't get a chance to talk to him?" "You will. I'll make sure of it." After dinner, the lights dimmed slightly, and George took the stage with his acoustic guitar. Emily had heard these songs hundreds of times, but hearing them performed live, in her own home, was entirely different. His voice filled the ballroom with a warmth and authenticity that made every word feel personal, like he was singing directly to each person in the room. He performed Amarillo by Morning, The Chair, I Cross My Heart, and several others, mixing classics with stories about the songs and their meanings. Between numbers, he talked about the foundation, about the importance of supporting children's charities, about his own experiences with loss and hope. "Music has a way of getting us through the hard times," George said during one break. "It's there when words fail us, when we need something to hold on to." That's what makes nights like this special, coming together through music to help others find their way. Emily felt tears sliding down her cheeks, grateful that the dim lighting would hide them. This was why his music meant so much to her, because it understood loss and resilience without being mawkish or false. It simply told the truth in melody. When the performance ended, the applause was thunderous. Guests rose to their feet, and Emily felt Claire grab her hand, squeezing tight. "This is it," Claire whispered. "We're going to make this happen." As the crowd mingled during the reception that followed, Claire gently guided Emily through the ballroom, narrating who was where, and slowly steering them toward where George stood, talking with small groups of guests. "He's by the stage," Claire murmured. "Victoria is on the other side of the room talking to the foundation director. This might be your best chance." Emily's mouth went dry. This was the moment, the choice between staying safe within her mother's boundaries or stepping forward into uncertainty. "I need my guitar," Emily whispered. "It's in the music room." "I'll get it. Stay right here near this column. I'll be back in 2 minutes." Claire disappeared, and Emily stood alone in the crowded ballroom, her cane folded and tucked into her dress pocket to avoid drawing attention. Around her, conversations swirled. Praise for the performance, discussion of foundation projects, the social currency of Austin's elite. She felt exposed and vulnerable, but also more alive than she had in years. "Here," Claire said breathlessly, pressing the guitar case into Emily's hands. "Okay, he just finished talking to a group, and he's moving toward the patio doors. This is perfect. It's quieter out there. Come on." Claire guided Emily through the French doors that led to the back patio, overlooking the pool and Lake Austin beyond. The night air was warm and heavy with the scent of jasmine from the garden. Emily could hear the gentle lap of water from the infinity pool and the distant sound of boats on the lake. "He's out here," Claire whispered. "Just him, standing by the railing looking at the view. Emily, this is your moment. I'm going to go back inside so you can have privacy, okay? You can do this." Before Emily could protest, she heard Claire's footsteps retreating. She was alone on the patio with George Strait, holding her guitar and trying to control her racing heart. "Beautiful night." George's voice came from near the railing, startling her. "The lake looks peaceful under the stars." Yes, I'm sure it does," Emily said, her voice shaking slightly. "Mr. Strait, I'm Emily Bradford. This is my family's home. Emily, it's wonderful to meet you. Your mother has done an incredible job with this event. And please, call me George. Thank you for being here and for performing. Your music." Emily paused, gathering her courage. "Your music has meant more to me than you could know. After I lost my sight 5 years ago, your songs helped me find my way when everything else felt impossible." There was a moment of silence, and then George spoke, his voice gentle with understanding. "I'm honored to hear that. Music has a healing power that goes beyond what we can explain. I'm glad my songs could be there for you. They were more than just songs. They were like a friend who understood loss without needing to say much about it. Just honest stories about real life." Emily's hands tightened on the guitar case. "I started writing my own music after the accident. It helped me process everything, helped me find words for things I couldn't say out loud. And I was wondering, this might be completely inappropriate, and you can absolutely say no, but would you mind if I played you one of my songs? Just to say thank you, in the only way I really know how?" "I'd be honored," George said sincerely. "Please." Emily's hands trembled as she opened the case and lifted out her guitar. She settled onto one of the patio chairs, positioning the instrument carefully. Behind her, through the French doors, she could hear the reception continuing, but out here, it was just her and George Strait and the Texas night. "This song is called Finding Light," Emily said softly. "It's about learning to see in a different way." She began to play, her fingers finding the chords she'd practiced 1,000 times in the privacy of her room. And then she sang, "I lost my way when darkness came, couldn't find the light, couldn't see through the pain. But somewhere in the shadow, somewhere in the night, I learned that seeing isn't just about sight. I found light in the music, in the friends who stayed near, found light in the morning, in the sound of the breeze, found light in the memories that I hold so dear. Now I'm finding my way by feeling, not by seeing. They say that when you lose your eyes, your other senses grow, and I can hear the sunrise, feel the rivers flow. There's a world beyond vision, beyond what we can see, and I'm learning that this darkness has set something free. I found light in the music, in the voices I know, found light in the laughter, in learning to let go, found light in the courage of each step I take. Now I'm finding my way forward, for my own sake." What Emily didn't know, couldn't know, was that, as she sang, Victoria Bradford had stepped onto the patio, searching for her daughter, and there she stood, frozen behind the slightly open French door, hidden from view but hearing every word, hearing her daughter's voice crack with emotion as she sang about finding light in darkness, about learning to let go, about taking steps forward for her own sake. Victoria's hand covered her mouth as tears began to stream down her face. She'd been so focused on protecting Emily, on preventing another tragedy, that she'd never stopped to hear what her daughter actually needed. She'd been holding on so tightly that she'd never noticed she was holding Emily back. Inside the ballroom, she'd been the powerful executive, the woman in control. But here, listening to her daughter sing about finding freedom in darkness, Victoria finally saw what she'd been too afraid to see before, that Emily didn't need protection. She needed the chance to live. Emily's voice faded on the final note, her fingers stilling on the guitar strings. For a moment, there was only the sound of the night, cicadas singing in the trees, the gentle lap of water against the pool's edge, a boat motor humming on the distant lake. She sat motionless, her heart pounding, suddenly terrified that she'd overstepped, that she'd made a fool of herself. "Emily," George Strait's voice was thick with emotion. "That was—" He paused, and she heard him move closer, his boots soft against the stone patio. "That was one of the most honest, beautiful songs I've heard in a very long time. You have a real gift, not just for playing, but for truth-telling. That's what the best country music does. It tells the truth." "Thank you," Emily whispered, overwhelmed. "That means everything coming from you." "I mean it sincerely. You know, I lost my daughter Jennifer when she was just 13. Car accident, like what happened to your daddy." His voice was steady, but Emily could hear the old grief beneath it. "Music was one of the things that helped me and my family get through that. So I understand what you're saying in your song about finding light in the darkness. Sometimes that's all we can do. Find the small lights and follow them home." Emily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry for your loss. I didn't know." "It's all right. It was a long time ago. But you never really get over losing a child. Or a parent, I imagine." George's voice softened. "Emily, can I ask you something? How long have you been writing songs?" "About 3 years. I started during therapy sessions, just putting my feelings into words and melodies. But I've never played them for anyone except my best friend Claire. My mother doesn't even know I write music. She knows I play, but not that I compose." "Why keep it hidden?" Emily hesitated, unsure how to explain the complicated dynamics of her relationship with Victoria. without sounding ungrateful or disloyal. My mother has been very protective since the accident. She sees me as fragile, something that needs to be kept safe. If she knew I was writing songs, especially songs about wanting independence and freedom, I think it would hurt her. She'd see it as a criticism. Or, George said gently, she might see it as you growing into who you're meant to be. Parents sometimes hold on too tight because they love too much. That doesn't make it right, but it might help to understand where it comes from. Behind the French door, Victoria stood frozen, tears streaming down her face as George Strait voiced the truth she'd been unable to see herself. She'd been holding on too tight, suffocating her daughter with protection disguised as love. And Emily had been suffering in silence, afraid to hurt the mother who'd already lost so much. "I know she loves me," Emily said. "I know she's terrified of losing me, like she lost my father. But I'm 19 years old, and I feel like I'm still living at 14, frozen in time at the moment of the accident. Everyone else got to move forward, except me." Have you told her this? In pieces, in therapy, in small arguments that never go anywhere? But she doesn't really hear me. Or maybe I'm not saying it clearly enough. Emily set the guitar carefully back in its case. "I'm sorry. I'm unloading all of this on you when you came here for a benefit concert, not to be someone's therapist. Don't apologize. Sometimes the most important conversations happen in unexpected places." George pulled up a chair and sat down nearby. "Can I tell you something I've learned in my years in this business? The best songs, the ones that really last, come from people who are willing to be vulnerable, to share the hard truths, even when it's scary. You've got that quality, Emily. Your song tonight proved it. But what good is writing songs if no one ever hears them? If I'm too afraid to share them or let my mother know they exist, then maybe it's time to stop being afraid. Not recklessly. I'm not saying you should blow up your life, but maybe there are ways to start claiming your voice, letting people hear what you have to say." George's tone was thoughtful. "You know, I'm working with a young songwriter named Jamie Caldwell. She's about your age, been writing since she was 16. I'm helping her develop her craft, connecting her with people in the industry. If you're interested, I could introduce you to. Having a community of songwriters can make all the difference." Emily's breath caught. "You'd do that?" "Of course. Talent like yours deserves to be nurtured, not hidden away." He paused. "But I think there's something you need to do first. You need to have an honest conversation with your mother. Tell her what you told me tonight, that you're grateful for her protection, but you need room to grow, to make your own choices, even your own mistakes. She might surprise you." Behind the door, Victoria's hand trembled as she pressed it against her chest. The pain in her heart was almost physical. The realization of how much she'd missed, how much she'd gotten wrong despite her best intentions. She'd thought she was protecting Emily, but she'd been preventing her from living. "I don't know if I can do that," Emily admitted. "Every time I try to push for independence, she finds reasons why it's too dangerous, why I'm not ready. How do I convince her?" "Maybe you don't convince her. Maybe you just start living your truth and trust that she'll come around." George stood, and Emily heard the rustle of his jacket. "Emily, your mother is inside right now, probably wondering where you are. This moment, right now, could be the start of something different. You could walk back in there as the person she expects you to be, or you could walk in as the person you actually are. A talented songwriter who's ready to share her voice with the world. That's terrifying. The best things usually are." His voice held a smile. "Come on, let's go face the music, so to speak." As George opened the French door fully, Victoria quickly stepped back into the shadows of the ballroom, wiping her tears and trying to compose herself. She watched as her daughter walked back inside, guitar case in hand, her face radiant with an emotion Victoria hadn't seen in 5 years. Hope. The reception was winding down, guests saying their goodbyes and thanking Victoria for the wonderful evening. She moved through the motions automatically, shaking hands and accepting compliments, while her mind replayed every word she'd overheard on the patio. Emily feels like she's frozen at 14, living in the moment of the accident. She's afraid her music will hurt me. She needs room to grow, to make her own choices, even her own mistakes. Every word was a knife, cutting through the protective barriers Victoria had built around her heart and her daughter. She'd thought she was being a good mother, but she'd been smothering the very person she was trying to save. Victoria, thank you for hosting such a wonderful event. George Strait appeared at her side, his manner gracious and professional. The Foundation is incredibly grateful for your support. It was my pleasure, George. Thank you for sharing your talent with us tonight. Victoria's voice was steady, despite the turmoil inside her. I hope you had a chance to meet my daughter, Emily. I did. She's a remarkable young woman, incredibly talented musician and songwriter. Victoria blinked. Songwriter? She didn't tell you? She played me one of her original compositions. It was exceptional. Honest, emotional, beautifully crafted. You should be very proud of her. Victoria felt the floor shift beneath her feet. Emily had played her own song for George Strait, had shared something so personal and significant, and Victoria had known nothing about it. How many other parts of her daughter's life had she missed while being so focused on protection and control? I didn't know she was writing songs, Victoria managed. George's expression was kind but direct. Sometimes our kids surprise us. Sometimes they're more capable and ready than we give them credit for. She's got real talent, Victoria, the kind that shouldn't be kept hidden. After George and the last of the guests departed, Victoria found Emily in the music room, putting her guitar away. The house was quiet except for the catering staff cleaning up in the ballroom. Emily, can we talk? Emily turned toward her mother's voice, her expression guarded. Of course. Victoria sat down on the piano bench, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. I heard you tonight, on the patio with George. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I came looking for you, and I heard your song. I heard everything you said. Emily's face went pale. Mom, No. Let me finish, please. Victoria's voice broke. I heard you sing about finding light in darkness, about learning to let go, about taking steps forward for your own sake. And I heard you tell George that you feel frozen at 14, that I'm holding you back, that you're afraid your music will hurt me. I didn't mean... You did mean it. And you were right. Tears were streaming down Victoria's face now, years of grief and fear finally breaking through. Emily, I've been so focused on protecting you from another tragedy that I never stopped to see that I was preventing you from living. I've been holding on so tightly because I'm terrified of losing you like I lost your father. But in trying to keep you safe, I've kept you trapped. Emily stood motionless, her own tears falling silently. Mom, when your father died, a part of me died with him. And when you were hurt, when you lost your sight, I made a promise that I would never let anything hurt you again. But I broke a different promise, the one I made when you were born, to help you become whoever you were meant to be, not just keep you safe. Victoria's voice was raw with emotion. You wrote a song, Emily, a beautiful song that George Strait said was exceptional. And I didn't even know you were writing music because you were afraid to tell me, afraid it would hurt me. What kind of mother have I been? Emily moved toward her mother's voice, her hands outstretched until they found Victoria's shoulders. Mom, you've been a mother who loves me. a mother who's been through unbearable loss and did everything she could to protect what was left. I understand that. I've always understood that. But understanding doesn't make it right. Understanding doesn't give you your life back. Victoria grasped Emily's hands. Doctor, Hutchinson has been telling me for months that you're ready for more independence, and I've been finding every excuse to delay it. But tonight, hearing you sing, hearing you talk about feeling frozen in time, Emily, I can't do that to you anymore. I won't. What are you saying? I'm saying it's time for me to let go. Not completely, not all at once. I'm still your mother, and I'm still going to worry. But you're 19 years old, and you deserve to make your own choices, take your own risks, live your own life. Victoria pulled Emily into a fierce embrace. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry I've been holding you back, when I should have been helping you fly. They held each other and cried, years of unspoken pain and frustration finally releasing into the quiet of the music room. Outside, the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the eastern sky. And somewhere in the house, the catering staff finished their cleanup and departed, leaving mother and daughter alone with their tears and their truth. I want to help you pursue your music, Victoria said when they finally pulled apart. George mentioned a songwriter he knows, someone around your age. I want you to meet her, to work with her if you'd like. And I want to hear your songs, Emily. All of them. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I've spent 5 years trying to protect you from the world. It's time I started introducing you to it instead. Victoria wiped her eyes, her executive composure slowly returning, but softened by genuine emotion. But there's something I need from you too. I need you to be patient with me. I need you to understand that letting go is going to be hard for me, that I'm going to make mistakes, that sometimes I'm still going to be overprotective. Can you give me that grace? Of course, Emily said. If you can be patient with me while I figure out how to actually live independently, then we'll figure it out together. Not with me controlling everything, but together as mother and daughter, both of us learning and growing. Victoria stood, suddenly feeling exhausted and relieved in equal measure. It's almost dawn. We should try to get some sleep. But tomorrow, or I guess later today, I want to call George's management and get that songwriter's contact information. And I want to start looking into music programs at UT Austin. If you want to pursue music seriously, let's do it right. Emily's face transformed with a joy that Victoria hadn't seen since before the accident. Really? You'd support that? I'd be honored to support that. You have a gift, Emily. It's time the world got to hear it. As Emily made her way to her bedroom, her steps lighter than they'd been in years, Victoria stood in the music room watching the sun rise over Lake Austin. The house felt different somehow, less like a protective fortress and more like a home where real life could happen, with all its risks and beauty and possibility. She'd spent 5 years building walls to keep tragedy out. Maybe it was finally time to open some doors and let life back in. The weeks following the benefit concert brought changes to the Bradford household that felt both subtle and seismic. Victoria kept her promise, backing away from the suffocating control she'd maintained over Emily's life, while still remaining involved and supportive. It was a delicate balance, one that neither of them navigated perfectly, but they were learning. The first major step came 3 days after the concert, when Victoria arranged a phone call with Jamie Caldwell, the young songwriter George Strait had mentioned. Emily took the call in the music room, her hands trembling slightly as she activated the speaker. Emily? Hi. George told me all about you and your song. I'm so excited to connect. Jamie's voice was warm and enthusiastic, with a slight Tennessee accent. He said you've been writing for about 3 years? Yes, mostly just for myself. I've never really thought about it as something I could do professionally." Emily settled into her chair, trying to calm her nerves. "George said you've been working with him on your songwriting?" "Yeah, he's been an amazing mentor. I met him at a songwriting workshop in Nashville 2 years ago, and he's been giving me feedback and connecting me with other writers ever since. The country music community can be really supportive if you find the right people." Jamie paused. "George sent me a recording of your song, Finding Light. Emily, it's beautiful. The melody is haunting, and your lyrics are so honest. Have you written others?" "About 20 songs, I think. Some are more finished than others." "That's fantastic. What if we set up a regular time to talk, maybe once a week? We could share our work, give each other feedback, collaborate on ideas. I'm in Nashville, but we can video chat or just voice chat. Whatever works better for you." "Voice chat would be great," Emily said, feeling a spark of excitement. "I'd really like that, Jamie." Over the following weeks, those conversations became a highlight of Emily's life. Jamie was talented and driven, but also generous with her knowledge and encouragement. They'd spend hours on the phone discussing chord progressions, lyrical structures, and the vulnerable process of turning personal experiences into songs that others could connect with. "The best songs make the listener feel less alone," Jamie explained during one of their calls. "They take something specific from your life and make it universal, like Finding Light. It's about your experience with blindness, but it's really about anyone who's going through darkness and learning to find their way." Emily began writing more prolifically, filling notebooks with lyrics using a Braille label maker and recording voice memos of melodies that came to her at odd hours. Victoria would find her in the music room at midnight, guitar in hand, lost in composition. Rather than insisting she go to bed at a reasonable hour like she once would have, Victoria would simply leave a glass of water nearby and let her daughter create. Dr. Hutchinson noticed the transformation immediately. "You seem different," he observed during one of their sessions. "More energized, more present." "I feel different," Emily admitted. "It's like I've been living in grayscale for 5 years, and suddenly there's color again. I'm writing music, I'm connecting with other songwriters, and my mom is actually supporting it. She even bought me a new digital recorder so I can capture ideas more easily." "How do you feel about your relationship with your mother now?" "It's still complicated, but it's better. She's trying really hard to give me space, and I can tell it's difficult for her. Sometimes she'll start to micromanage something and then catch herself. Last week, she asked if I wanted to order my own food at a restaurant instead of asking me what I wanted and ordering for me. It seems like a small thing, but it felt huge. Those small things add up to significant change," Dr. Hutchinson said. "How are you doing with building other areas of independence?" "I've been using rideshare services a few times a week to get to therapy and to Claire's house. Mom still worries, but she hasn't tried to stop me. And I enrolled in 2 online classes through Austin Community College. Introduction to Music Theory and Creative Writing. They start next month." "Emily, that's excellent progress. I'm proud of you." The progress wasn't without setbacks. 2 weeks after starting to use rideshare services independently, Emily had a driver who became frustrated with providing the level of assistance she needed and left her at the wrong location. Emily called Victoria, panicked and disoriented, and Victoria immediately sent Robert to find her. For several days afterward, Victoria's old anxieties resurged, and she suggested Emily return to having Robert drive her everywhere. "Mom, one bad experience doesn't mean I should give up," Emily argued. "It means I learned something. Now I know to confirm the destination more clearly with the driver, and I've found an app specifically designed for passengers with visual impairments. I can do this." Victoria had struggled visibly with her fear before finally nodding. "You're right. I'm sorry. One bad experience doesn't define the whole. But Emily, please promise me you'll stay safe, that you'll call me if anything goes wrong. I promise, Mom, and thank you for trusting me. These moments of tension and resolution became part of their new normal. Victoria, working to control her protective instincts. Emily learning to assert her needs while understanding her mother's fears. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One afternoon in late July, Victoria entered the music room where Emily was working on a new song. Emily, I have something I want to discuss with you. Can you take a break? Emily set down her guitar, immediately sensing the formal tone in her mother's voice. Of course. What's going on? I've been thinking about your music and your future. You're clearly passionate about songwriting, and you have genuine talent. But I want to make sure you're developing that talent in the right environment with the right support. Victoria paused, and Emily heard her mother sit down on the piano bench. What would you think about spending some time in Nashville? Not permanently, but maybe a few weeks to immerse yourself in the songwriting community there. Jamie has offered to introduce you to other writers and show you around the music scene. Emily's heart leaped. Nashville? Really? You'd be okay with that? I'd be terrified, Victoria admitted honestly. But that doesn't mean it's not the right thing for you. Jamie says there are excellent programs for emerging songwriters, workshops, and co-writing sessions where you could develop your craft. And she's offered to let you stay with her and her roommate so you wouldn't be alone in a strange city. Mom, that would be incredible. But are you sure? That's a big step. It's a huge step for both of us. Victoria's voice was thick with emotion. But you can't build a life here in Austin, in our house, sheltered from everything. You need experiences, opportunities to grow and challenge yourself. And I need to learn that letting you go doesn't mean losing you. Emily stood and moved toward her mother, her arms outstretched until she found Victoria and pulled her into an embrace. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to let me be brave. Just promise me you'll be careful, that you'll call me every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And that you'll come home if it becomes too overwhelming. I promise. But Mom, I don't think it will be overwhelming. I think it might be exactly what I need. The next few weeks were spent preparing for Emily's trip. Victoria helped her research orientation and mobility services in Nashville, connected her with accessibility resources, and had long conversations with Jamie about logistics and safety. Emily could tell her mother was struggling with anxiety, but Victoria never once suggested canceling the trip. Claire was thrilled when Emily told her the news. Em, this is amazing! You're going to Nashville to pursue your music? Do you realize how incredible that is? A few months ago, you couldn't even go to therapy alone, and now you're planning a trip to another city. It doesn't feel real yet, Emily admitted. They were sitting by the pool, the August heat shimmering off the water. Part of me keeps waiting for something to go wrong, for Mom to change her mind. She won't. She's finally seeing you for who you are, not just who she's afraid you might become if you leave her protection. Claire squeezed her friend's hand. You're going to do great things, Emily. I know it. The week before her departure, Emily received an unexpected phone call. Emily, this is George Strait. I heard from Jamie that you're coming to Nashville. I wanted to reach out and congratulate you on taking that step. George, thank you so much for connecting me with Jamie. She's been an incredible mentor and friend. She speaks very highly of you, too. Your collaboration has been good for both of you. George paused. Emily, I know this is a big step. Leaving home and diving into the Nashville music scene, I want you to know that you have support there. I've spoken with a few people I trust in the industry. Let them know to look out for a talented young songwriter named Emily Bradford. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know how to thank you. That night at the concert changed everything for me. You don't need to thank me. You did the hard work. You found your voice and you had the courage to share it. I just opened a door. You're the one walking through it. His voice was warm with genuine pride. I'm excited to see where your music takes you, Emily. Keep writing the truth. That's what matters most. The night before her flight, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the familiar sounds of her home, the hum of the air conditioning, the distant traffic on the 360 bridge, the settling of the house's foundation. This room had been her sanctuary and her prison for 5 years. Tomorrow, she would leave it behind for the unknown territory of Nashville. Around midnight, she heard a soft knock on her door. "Emily? Are you awake?" "Come in, Mom." Victoria entered and sat on the edge of Emily's bed. "I couldn't sleep either. I keep thinking about all the things I want to tell you before you leave. All the advice and warnings and instructions, but I'm trying very hard not to overwhelm you with my anxiety. You can tell me. I know you're worried." "I'm terrified," Victoria said simply, "but I'm also proud. So incredibly proud of who you've become, of the courage you've shown in pursuing your music and your independence. Your father would be so proud too." Emily reached for her mother's hand. "I wish he could see this. I wish he could know that I'm going to be okay. He does know. Wherever he is, he knows." Victoria's voice broke slightly. "Emily, I need to tell you something. The night of the concert, when I heard you sing about being frozen at 14, about feeling trapped, it broke my heart because I realized I'd been so focused on protecting you from dying that I'd prevented you from living. I failed you, sweetheart." "Mom, no. Let me finish. I failed you, but you saved yourself anyway. You found your voice, your music, your courage despite my best efforts to keep you locked away. That's not because of me. It's in spite of me. And I need you to know that wherever your music takes you, whatever life you build, I'm going to support it, even when it scares me. Especially when it scares me." They held each other in the darkness, both crying, both terrified, both finally ready to let the future unfold as it would. "I love you, Mom. Thank you for finally trusting me. I love you too, Emily, more than you could ever know. Now, try to get some sleep. You have a big day tomorrow." After Victoria left, Emily lay awake for another hour, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. But beneath the anxiety was something else: excitement. For the first time in 5 years, her future felt open rather than closed, full of potential rather than limitations. She was finally finding her way forward, and the light ahead was growing brighter. The Nashville summer heat hit Emily the moment she stepped out of the airport, thick and humid, carrying the scent of asphalt and distant rain. Jamie Caldwell's voice cut through the chaos of arriving passengers and idling cars. "Emily! Over here!" Emily followed the voice, her cane sweeping across the sidewalk until Jamie's hand found her elbow. "I've got you. My car is just 2 rows over. How was the flight?" "Long but good. My mom called 3 times before takeoff to remind me of safety protocols." Emily laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. "How's Nashville treating you?" "It's hot, it's crowded, and the music scene is insane right now. You're going to love it." Jamie guided Emily to an older Honda Civic that smelled like coffee and vanilla air freshener. "Our apartment is about 20 minutes from here, near Music Row. My roommate Kennedy is excited to meet you. She's a session musician, plays fiddle and mandolin." As they drove through Nashville, Jamie narrated the passing scenery: the honky-tonks of Lower Broadway, the historic Ryman Auditorium, the new high-rises changing the skyline. Emily absorbed it all through sound and description, building a mental map of her new temporary home. The apartment was a modest two-bedroom on the third floor of a building that housed mostly musicians and service industry workers. Kennedy Flynn greeted them at the door, her Irish accent warm and welcoming. "Emily, Jamie's told me so much about you. Welcome to Nashville, land of dreams and day jobs. Come in, come in." The apartment was small but comfortable. Jamie walked Emily through the layout carefully. The kitchen with its counter space and appliances, the bathroom with its grab bars that the previous tenant had installed, the living room with its worn couch and impressive sound system, and finally, the guest room that would be Emily's for the next month. "It's not fancy, but it's home," Jamie said. "Kennedy and I have cleared out the closet for your things, and there's a desk by the window if you want to write. The building is pretty quiet during the day since most people work nights." "It's perfect," Emily said sincerely. "Thank you for letting me stay here." That first week in Nashville was overwhelming in the best way possible. Jamie took Emily to her first professional songwriting session at a small studio near Music Row, where 3 other writers gathered to collaborate on songs for an upcoming artist's album. Emily sat quietly at first, listening as the others bounced ideas off each other, building melodies and lyrics with a casual creativity that seemed almost magical. "Emily, you've been quiet," said Marcus Chen, one of the veteran songwriters in the room. "Jamie says you write. What do you think about this chorus we've been working on?" Emily had been following along, hearing the structure taking shape. "I think the melody is strong, but the lyrics feel a bit generic. 'Love me like you mean it' has been done so many times. What if you made it more specific? Like, 'Love me like the last song of summer,' or something that creates a stronger image." The room went quiet, and Emily immediately worried she'd overstepped. But then Marcus laughed, delighted. "That's good. That's really good. Jamie, your friend has an ear for this. Emily, what else you got?" By the end of the 3-hour session, Emily had contributed to 2 different songs, her suggestions shaping lyrics and melody in ways that felt natural and collaborative. As they left the studio, Jamie squeezed her arm. "You were amazing in there. Marcus loved your ideas, and he's not easy to impress. I was terrified I'd say something stupid. Welcome to songwriting. We're all terrified all the time, but you push through it because the music matters more than the fear." Emily's days fell into a rhythm. Mornings were spent writing alone in the apartment. Afternoons involved songwriting sessions or workshops, and evenings often meant attending songwriter rounds at various venues around Nashville, where musicians would perform their original work and tell the stories behind the songs. One evening, Jamie took Emily to the Bluebird Cafe, the legendary venue where countless careers had been launched. "We might not get in. The line is always insane, but I wanted you to experience it at least once." They waited for 90 minutes in the summer heat, but Emily didn't mind. The anticipation, the conversations with other aspiring songwriters in line, the electric sense of possibility, it all felt like part of the experience. When they finally got inside, Emily was struck by how small and intimate the venue was, how the writers sat in the center of the room with the audience surrounding them. The first songwriter was a woman in her 60s who had written hits for Reba McEntire and Trisha Yearwood. She played 3 songs, each one a masterclass in storytelling and emotional resonance. Between songs, she talked about the craft, about the years of rejection before success, about the importance of writing truthfully, even when it hurt. "The songs that scare you to share are usually the ones that matter most," she said. "Because if it scares you, it means it's real. And real is what people connect with." Emily thought about Finding Light, about how terrified she'd been to play it for George Strait. But that fear had led to everything that followed. Her connection with Jamie, this trip to Nashville, the doors opening in her music career. The woman was right. Fear was a sign you were heading in the right direction. Halfway through Emily's stay in Nashville, Victoria called with unexpected news. "Emily, George Strait's team reached out to me. He's doing a small acoustic show at the Ryman Auditorium next month as part of a songwriter's tribute series. He wants to know if you'd be interested in performing one of your songs as part of the showcase." Emily's breath stopped. "The Ryman? Me? Mom, that's impossible. I'm not a performer. I've barely played for anyone except Jamie and a few songwriters." "That's what I said. But his manager said George specifically requested you. He believes in your talent, Emily. He thinks you're ready." Victoria paused. "But the decision is yours. I won't push you either way. Though I will say that if you choose to do it, your mother will be in the audience cheering loudly and possibly crying." After hanging up, Emily sat in stunned silence. The Ryman Auditorium, the mother church of country music, where legends had performed for generations. And George Strait wanted her to perform there. "You have to do it," Jamie said when Emily told her. "Em, opportunities like this don't come along every day. George Strait is essentially giving you his stamp of approval in front of the Nashville music community. That's huge. What if I mess up? What if I forget the words or my voice cracks or... Then you'll be human, like every other performer who's ever taken that stage. Emily, you've been writing about finding light in darkness, about learning to navigate without sight. This is your chance to show everyone what that actually looks like. To prove that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's singing despite it." Emily spent the next 2 weeks preparing, working with Jamie and Kennedy to refine her performance of Finding Light and a new song she'd written in Nashville called Grace in the Growing. The new song was about the relationship between her and Victoria, about learning to forgive and be forgiven, about the messy process of becoming who you were meant to be. "That one's going to wreck people," Kennedy said, after hearing it for the first time. "It's beautiful, Em. Really beautiful." Dr. Hutchinson called twice during those weeks to check on Emily's emotional state. "How are you managing the pressure?" "I'm terrified and excited in equal measure," Emily admitted. "But I keep thinking about what you said months ago, that courage is moving forward, despite fear. This feels like the ultimate test of that. You've already passed the test, Emily. Everything since that night with George Strait has been you proving your courage. This performance is just one more step on the path you're already walking." Victoria flew to Nashville 3 days before the show, staying at a hotel near the venue. Emily could hear the anxiety in her mother's voice when they met for dinner, but Victoria was clearly trying to manage it without projecting it onto Emily. "Your father would be losing his mind right now," Victoria said over pasta at a small Italian restaurant near the Ryman. "He always said you had something special. I think he'd be insufferably proud. I wish he could be there. He will be. In the ways that matter, he'll be there." Victoria reached across the table and took Emily's hand. "I want to tell you something. These past few months, watching you grow and pursue your music and build this life in Nashville, it's been the hardest and best thing I've ever experienced. Hard because letting go goes against every protective instinct I have. Best because I'm finally seeing who you really are, not just who I was afraid you couldn't be. Mom, let me finish. When you lost your sight, I thought I'd lost you too. Not literally, but the future I'd imagined for you. College, career, family, all the normal milestones. I grieved for that future, and I tried to create a new one that was safe and controlled. But you didn't need safe and controlled. You needed space to figure out your own path, to create your own future. And you did it, Emily. Despite my best efforts to keep you in a cage of protection, You found your wings anyway. Emily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. You weren't wrong to protect me, Mom. You were hurt and scared, and you did the best you could. We both did. Grace in the growing, Victoria said softly, referencing Emily's new song. That's what we're learning, isn't it? To give each other grace as we both figure this out. The night of the performance arrived with typical Nashville unpredictability. A thunderstorm rolled through in the late afternoon, leaving the city washed clean and sparkling. Emily stood backstage at the Ryman with Jamie, Kennedy, Claire, who had flown in that morning, and Victoria, all of them buzzing with nervous energy. You're going to be incredible, Claire said for the 10th time. I've never seen you this calm before. A big moment. I'm not calm. I'm terrified, Emily corrected with a smile. But I'm also ready. That's new. George Strait found her in the green room 20 minutes before the show started. Emily, how are you feeling? Honestly, like I might throw up, but in a good way. He laughed. That's the mark of a real performer. The day you stop being nervous is the day you stop caring. His voice grew serious. Emily, I want you to know something. When I first heard you sing Finding Light, I knew you had something special. Not just talent. Lots of people have talent. You have truth. You write and sing with an honesty that cuts through all the noise and reaches people where they really live. That's rare, and it's valuable. Tonight, all you need to do is share that truth. The Ryman will take care of the rest. Thank you, George, for everything, for listening that night, for connecting me with Jamie, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. You always believed in yourself, Emily. You just needed someone to help you see it. Now go show Nashville what us Texans are made of. The showcase featured 6 different songwriters, each performing 2 original songs. Emily was scheduled 5th, which meant she had time to listen to the others and feel the energy of the crowd. The Ryman was packed, nearly 2,000 people filling the pews that served as seating. Their attention focused on the performers with an intensity Emily could feel even without seeing. When her name was called, Emily stood and made her way to center stage, guided by a stagehand to the stool and microphone. The applause was warm and welcoming, and she took a moment to center herself, feeling the weight of the moment. Somewhere in the audience, her mother was watching. Claire was watching. Jamie and Kennedy were watching. But more importantly, she was about to share her truth with a room full of strangers who had come looking for authentic music. Good evening, Emily said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. My name is Emily Bradford, and I'm a songwriter from Austin, Texas. 5 years ago, I lost my sight in a car accident that killed my father. For a long time, I felt like I'd lost everything. My vision, my future, my sense of who I was. But music helped me find my way back. This first song is called Finding Light, and it's about learning to see in a different way. She began to play, her fingers finding the familiar chords on the borrowed Martin guitar. And then she sang, her voice filling the historic space with an honesty and vulnerability that silenced the crowd completely. Every word, every note was infused with the pain and hope and hard-won wisdom of her journey. When she reached the chorus, I found light in the music, in the friends who stayed near, found light in the morning, in the sound of the breeze. She heard someone in the audience sob quietly. The song ended to a moment of profound silence, and then the applause erupted, thunderous and sustained. Emily felt tears on her cheeks, but pushed forward, knowing she had one more song to share. This next song is called Grace in the Growing, she said when the applause finally quieted. It's about the relationship between me and my mom, about learning to forgive each other and ourselves, as we both figure out how to let go and hold on at the same time. Mom, this one's for you. The song was gentler than the first, more introspective. The lyrics spoke of protection and prison, of love that holds too tight, of learning that letting go isn't the same as losing, of the messy grace required when two people are both trying to heal from the same wound. You built walls to keep the darkness out, but the walls kept out the light, and we both got lost in trying to hold on too tight. But there's grace in the growing, grace in the letting go, grace in the trusting that love will show us both the way home. In the audience, Victoria wept openly, Claire's arm around her shoulders. Every word Emily sang was a truth they'd lived together. Every note, a bridge between past pain and future possibility. When the song ended, the Ryman rose to its feet. The standing ovation lasted nearly 3 minutes, and Emily sat on the stool, overwhelmed by the response, by the realization that her truth had resonated with so many strangers. George Strait joined her on stage, his hand on her shoulder as he addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, Emily Bradford. This young woman represents everything that's right about country music. Honest storytelling, emotional courage, and a voice that speaks truth. Nashville, you better remember this name, because Emily's got a bright future ahead of her." Chatridu. Backstage afterward, Emily was surrounded by well-wishers, songwriters wanting to collaborate, industry people exchanging business cards with Jamie, fans asking for photos. But the moment that mattered most was when Victoria found her, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard," Victoria whispered. "Emily, you took our pain, our struggle, our messy journey, and made it into something that can help others. That's a gift, sweetheart. That's your gift. We did it together, Mom. The grace in the growing. That's both of us." Later that night, after the excitement had faded and the crowds had dispersed, Emily stood on the stage of the empty Ryman with George Strait, Jamie, and Victoria. George had arranged for them to have a few quiet minutes in the historic venue before it closed for the night. "How does it feel?" George asked. "Standing on this stage as a performer, not just a guest?" "It feels like coming home to a place I've never been," Emily said. "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do. That's how you know you've found your calling. Hold on to that feeling, Emily. There will be hard days ahead. Rejection, criticism, self-doubt. But on those days, remember this moment. Remember that you have something real to offer, and that truth always finds its audience." Victoria stepped closer, her voice thick with emotion. "Emily, I want you to know that whatever you decide to do next, whether you stay in Nashville, come home to Austin, tour the world, or anything else, I'm going to support it. Not by controlling it or managing it, but by trusting you to make your own choices. You've earned that trust 1,000 times over." "I think I want to split my time," Emily said thoughtfully. "Nashville for songwriting and collaboration, Austin as my home base. I'm not ready to leave Texas completely, but I'm not ready to leave Nashville either. Can we figure that out?" "We can figure out anything," Victoria said. "Together, with grace in the growing." As they left the Ryman that night, walking out into the Nashville summer air, Emily felt something she hadn't experienced in 5 years. Absolute clarity about who she was and where she was headed. She was Emily Bradford, songwriter and performer, a young woman who had lost her sight but found her voice. The path forward would have obstacles and challenges, but she had the tools to navigate them. Her music, her courage, the support of people who believed in her, and most importantly, the knowledge that she could trust herself. She'd spent 5 years learning to see without eyes. Now she was learning to live without limits. 3 months later, Emily released her first EP, a 5-song collection titled Finding Light, that included both songs from the Ryman performance and 3 new compositions. George Strait wrote the liner notes, describing Emily as one of the most honest voices in country music today. The EP garnered attention from major music publications, with several critics noting Emily's unique perspective and emotional depth. Victoria attended every performance Emily gave in Austin, often sitting in the front row with Claire, both of them singing along to songs they'd heard Emily perfect in the music room at home. But Victoria also let Emily travel to Nashville, to smaller venues across Texas, even to a songwriters conference in Los Angeles, without trying to control every detail or eliminate every risk. "I'm learning that loving you means trusting you," Victoria told Emily one evening as they sat by the pool at the Bradford Mansion. "It's harder than I thought it would be, but it's also more rewarding. I'm not just protecting a daughter anymore. I'm watching an artist become who she's meant to be. And I'm learning that independence doesn't mean rejecting help or love," Emily replied. "It means accepting it on terms that allow me to grow. We're both learning, Mom." Dr. Hutchinson officially closed Emily's case file in December, noting that his patient had successfully navigated the transition from dependence to autonomy and was thriving in both her personal and professional life. "You did the work, Emily," he said during their final session. "I just provided a safe space for you to figure it out." "You gave me permission to want more," Emily corrected. "That mattered more than you know." On the 1-year anniversary of the benefit concert that had changed everything, George Strait invited Emily to open for him at a show in Austin. Standing backstage, Emily thought about the terrified young woman she'd been 12 months earlier, trapped in her mother's protection, afraid to assert her own desires, writing songs she never shared with anyone. That woman felt like a different person entirely. The Emily who took the stage that night was confident, purposeful, and clear about her identity and her art. She sang "Finding Light" and "Grace in the Growing" to a crowd of 10,000 people, her voice strong and sure. And when she finished, when the applause washed over her like a wave of affirmation, Emily knew with absolute certainty that she had found her way forward, not by seeing with her eyes, but by trusting her voice, her talent, and the truth that lived in her music. She had lost her sight 5 years ago, but in the darkness, she had discovered something more valuable: the courage to become herself, regardless of obstacles. And that light, once found, would guide her wherever her music led. The future was wide open, full of possibilities she couldn't see but could feel with every fiber of her being. And for the first time in 5 years, Emily wasn't afraid of what she couldn't see. She was excited to discover it.